We begin tonight with breaking news in the border crisis that could add insult to the ongoing injury being suffered by more than 2,300 kids who've been torn from their parents at the border. It's a problem, as you know, that the president and his administration caused by choosing back in April to enforce existing border laws in a way that other presidents have not until now. That's a demonstrable fact, no matter what you might hear from anyone in the administration. As you also know, what followed was kids in holding pens, kids in desert detention centers, kids taken hundreds, even thousands of miles away from their parents, young children, toddlers even, housed in so-called tender age facilities. The president has refused to take responsibility for his role in any of this, something on full display today, signing an executive order barring family separation. Now, during the ceremony, he deflected blame onto other presidents dating back to Eisenhower for a problem, a 3-month-old problem, that he says only he has had the courage to solve.
This has been going on for 60 years. 60 years. Nobody's taken care of it. Nobody's had the political courage to take care of it, but we're going to take care of it. It's been going on for a long time.
Well, that's not true. His administration enacted the zero tolerance policy that caused this whole blow-up. And now, just hours after the signing ceremony, we're learning some troubling things about what comes next. Namely, CNN has learned today's executive order does not call for the reuniting of children who have so far been separated from their parents. Caitlin Collins has the breaking news on that. She joins us now from the White House. So what exactly is going to happen to the more than 2,300 kids who are in detention centers tonight?
Well, Anderson, to put it bluntly, nothing. This executive order that the president signed in the Oval Office today, painting it as this long-term solution, is really not. It's more of a stopgap, and nothing, there is no language in the text of this executive order that's about 4 pages or so that says anything about these children who have already been split up from these parents, these 2,300 or so that we know of. Children, they will not be immediately reunited with their families because their parents are going to remain in federal custody as these immigration proceedings go on. So they are not grandfathered in any way in this language that the president instructed today to keep these families together if they are detained while coming across the border. That doesn't apply to these people. And so the president is painting this as a long-term solution, but officials from the Department of Justice, Health and Human Services, and the Department of Homeland Security are essentially saying that these kids who have already been separated from their parents won't be immediately reunited. It'll be up to the parents to talk to HHS and find a way to get back to be reunited with their children. But there is no language in here, Anderson, that reunites them with their families. Right.
The Justice Department, I understand, is saying that the child separation policy might actually resume in less than 3 weeks. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And that's because of this agreement that they cannot hold kids for longer than 20 days. Nothing that the president signed today changes any of that. So unless that they go to court and this ruling is overturned and they can instead hold these kids for longer than 20 days, then that's not going to change. And the officials recognized that today, admitted as much, saying essentially that after 20 days, it could go back to what it was before the president signed this executive order. Now, Anderson, the president did not have to sign an executive order to put an end to the separation of these families on the border. That is the direct result of a policy that his attorney general enacted not that long ago. So essentially, all he had to do was pick up the phone in the Oval Office and call the attorney general to put an end to this. But instead, our sources told us the president wanted to seem more decisive and instead of not make it seem like he was quietly reversing his policy, which is why he signed this executive order that, frankly, Anderson, seems to be a Band-Aid for this entire issue.
All right, Caitlin, thanks. As we said at the top, some of the kids in question now in limbo aren't all in those facilities you've been seeing in Texas. Hundreds are being taken to places scattered across the country, far from the border, and in many cases, far from their parents. 3 airlines today said they're asking the government not to put these kids on their flights. Nonetheless, more than 200 kids have already landed at a shelter in New York's East Harlem. Our Jason Carroll is there as well. He joins us now. Is there any indication from people running this facility that they've been given any kind of guidance as to what happens to these kids now?
Well, look, in the short term, what's going to happen to these children is, Anderson, they're going to stay with their foster families. They will go home at night, stay with their foster families, come back to facilities like this one, the Cayuga Center during the day. In the long term, though, there is no answer, no plan in place in terms of what will happen to the 239 children and babies, some as young as 9 months old, that are being housed here at this particular facility. Even tonight, the deputy mayor of Health and Human Services here in New York City says her office has received no plan from the federal government in terms of what to do with these 239 children. This is an issue, a problem that's facing not just the children at facilities at this one here in New York, but throughout the country. Anderson?
So how did the kids there end up there? Because they crossed the southern border, which is obviously nowhere near New York.
Right. Well, if you listen to New York City's mayor, Bill de Blasio, he brings up one example, a 9-year-old. He calls him Eddie from Honduras. He came up here on a bus. Most of those children came here, he says, by bus, long hours on a bus. Many of them arriving here with lice, bed bugs, chicken pox. He says some of the conditions that they may have received in transit on the way here. So many of them not in great condition. Many of the children suffering from the mental anguish of being separated from their parents. But imagine the shock, Anderson, this mayor had that he expressed today. Shock and anger at finding out that 239 children were here. He says his office, the city, had no idea until today that these children were even here. Anderson?
So you said that they're in foster care and they go back to at night and they go back to the facility during the day, or are they actually being housed at that facility?
No, that's correct. I mean, they're housed here during the day. They have classes. They receive care from social workers. They go home at night with foster families that they've been placed with. That's how this facility here operates. But again, remember, there are several facilities like this one, similar facilities like this one here in New York City. But I can't express enough the anger that this mayor had, because he says the federal government, federal officials simply are not communicating with city officials. That is why they found out here today, after this video came out showing some of these young girls being taken to this facility late at night. That's how the mayor's office got wind that there were some children here. He comes here and comes to find out that it's not just some, it's 239 children that are here. And the frustration that he has is that the federal government is telling facilities like this one not to share with them how much information they have about these children, the number of children that are here at this particular facility. This facility finally agreeing to cooperate, but can't express that enough. The anger that this mayor had in finding out that this many children were here in his city, right under his nose, and they had no idea.